All right, welcome. This is the first inaugural episode of Talk Fiber to Me, Baby. I'm Caleb Etheridge. I'm the co-owner and CEO of Etheridge Performance Cable, and this is my esteemed lesser half. I joke. It's my brother, Josh Etheridge, as well. He's our Chief Strategic Officer over at the company as well, and is also a co-owner of the company. So, you know what, Josh? Why don't you just jump right into introducing the company a little bit, where we came from? The whole nine.
Sure.
For the people.
Sure. It's hard to kind of get into this without saying like the whole story, but typically when I'm at an event and they're like, what do you do? I just say we're a utility construction company and we design and build networks. But as we're talking on this podcast, I imagine that we're going to get deeper and deeper as to what we actually do, how we create culture, how we create a workforce, how we started this company. But just to explain who we are today, we deploy fiber for different internet service providers. We actually help people design their fiber network. I like to say that if you have a dream of having a bigger fiber network, just draw a circle on the map and say, I'd really like to have these people in here and service those people. And we just help you get there.
Yeah.
Without going down too many rabbit holes, we've been talking in lots of different aspects of fiber over the last year, especially with all the government funding coming. So, we've kind of explored everything, I think you would agree. But at the same time, we like to keep our focus where our internet service providers want it to be. Hence the name, Talk Fiber to Me, Baby.
Yeah, and Talk Fiber to Me, Baby is a great, for the times and what's going on, I would say, right? All the focus is in these BEAD deployments, and then for the legacy providers, it seems like there's some hedging that's being done in their core markets, maybe to kind of fight that off, getting overbuilt and things like that. But I just think we needed, the space needs some practicality and some layman's. I subscribe to a lot, I know you do too. We subscribe to a lot of these different things, and we hear a lot of this legalese and a lot of the legislation and stuff that's going down, and there's a lot of like interpretation of it, and I think seems like there's some stuff out there that covers that. But at the end of the day, like, the rubber's got to meet the road. You've got to build these networks. You have to put all of that jargon into something that's useful and actionable for an internet service provider. And I think, we kind of gotten together and said, this is a need for the space. And so here we are. Now, it's Talk Fiber to Me, Baby. It could be talk insert here for the day. So we might wonder a little bit, but we'll try our best.
Well, I have ADHD. So like it'll be lucky if this thing isn't chopped and murdered into like 1,000. Yeah, you'll see it. I know you will. Like, if you're tuned in, you're just going to see like all of a sudden my mouth open and nothing come out because they cut me out. But
I believe my moderation skills will be tested in this format. But I'm looking forward to it.
Been that way for years.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to doing this with you.
Yeah,
and having all the great people that we're going to have come on.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning that we're going to bring in several different guests that are subject matter experts on whether it be fiber deployment, whether it be the programs themselves, state by state, which everybody knows these states are different through BEAD, through CPF, through USDA, Reconnect, just different stuff, and then there's the hyperscale side.
Right.
There's data centers popping up everywhere, and everybody's super excited about that. So, let's talk about it. I mean, what the heck is a data center? I mean, a lot of people are like, I got asked the other day, I think it was by like our bank or something. It was one of the banks that we're dealing with. And they were saying, where is the internet? And I think they even said, like, what is the internet? And I was like, I don't know what the heck you're talking about.
It's in the cloud.
Nobody understands it. It's the cloud. And so, I was like, how far are we going to get down into this answer? And I remember her, she's like, go as far as you want to go. I was like, oh gosh. And so we started talking about like beams of light and ones and zeros, and then refractive rates and all this in fiber. And then I realized, like,
is this the look you got?
Yeah, I've realized I've been talking for like 10 minutes, and then she was like, yeah, just like it came from everywhere would have been a good, or you're not smart enough to understand. And I was like, no, really, it's if I can understand, because as we go on with this, people are going to realize I'm just like a hillbilly redneck that's just educated in this because we've been doing it long enough to where we knew we needed to get into it.
Yeah.
And so if I can understand it, I know there's going to be tons of people that know it better than me, and I can't wait to have those people, on the show and start talking to them about what they know.
Yeah. So yeah. Great. Got some great people coming along. I've already reached out. I know Josh has as well. We're going to have people touching on workforce development, culture, then like you said, strategy and deployment, strategy and we know right now the big hot topic's BEAD. And so you've got these different stages that these different states are at within their BEAD applications, or who's taking applications, or who's already took applications, who's still trying to craft their BEAD programs and get them approved. And so we're going to bring in different experts in that too. Try to keep it a little academic and grab some useful information for the people.
Well, it's a good time. It's a good time.
But also, we want to bring, again, a practicality to it. It's like, what does that mean for you? A lot of times there's these forums and there's these talks, and it is, here's everything going on or what could go on, but it seems like they kind of miss that last piece of like, here's what it means for you. Here's something actionable and useful. Yeah. We want to make sure that we're bringing in people through this podcast and this medium to give actionable information to the people, right?
Yeah, I mean, you got to be almost a scholar to keep up with what's going on during the transition.
Yeah, and we just kind of want to interpret that for you. Layman's terms, like to Josh said, like we're a couple of rule-raised, I guess hillbillies. Yeah, sure, I'll wear it proudly.
There's some truth in that,
right? A little bit. We like.
I prefer redneck, but I'll take it.
Yeah. So if we can, we're going to try to get that out to the people in the same way we understand it. We feel like it'll be useful. I know we would appreciate it a lot of times. And so we're going to get those type of folks in here to kind of explain.
Gonna be doing this. I think we're going to be putting this out every other week.
Yep, it's on Fridays, right? So today's Friday. We'll try to get this one chopped up. I think it's going to go out by next Friday. Yeah. And then we're going to try to feed this. Unless you want more. If you want more, let us know. We'll see what we can do in our schedule.
Got to set up a website to start getting these replies in. Not saying that we have callers coming in or anything, but you can start getting questions via email.
Phone?
Oh man, that would be so cool to have a phone.
Caller number 1.
We got a call. It's my mom again. Mom, please stop calling. Yeah. I'm glad you're our number 1 fan.
Right.
No,
so touching a little bit. So we talked a little bit about the format, kind of what's going to go out, what people can expect. Mm-hmm. But they're probably sitting there wondering, like, who are you guys? All right. And so just take a second. I'm going to let Josh kind of move through this as I'm doing a little bit of the moderating side. I'll add a little color to it as needed. But just, who are these 2 yahoos sitting up here going to tell us about what's going to go on in Fiverr and what it means to us? Where's our credibility?
I think it's worth telling the story. I think that most everybody in our company can kind of recite the story to some extent as to how we came to be. Just to kind of go into it. You want to start because you were the one working off. It was really truly your spark that was like, hey, I'm ready.
Yeah. So Josh, you were having your first kid.
Yeah.
I wasn't there for it. I was off in North Dakota making extremely good money during the oil boom. I think I was up there 9 or 12 months. I'd kind of wound up there through my journey of pipeline inspection, working on the construction side. I moved over to the inspection side. Wound up in North Dakota. I thought I was chasing my dream until Kaysen came along, and I wasn't there for it, and that kind of hit me like this was temporary. And so I just called, I think, you up. Well, actually, we had somebody come visit us in North Dakota, kind of said, hey, what is it that you're wanting to do? It kind of was like, yeah, what do I want to do? And then that kind of timing-wise, you and Amber had Kaysen, and I'm like, okay, this could be a pathway home. And I think that was pretty much the basis of the first conversation, was just, hey, man, like, I just kind of had something and thought maybe this is a way we can get home. We could start up a little company. And I think we kicked that around for probably better part of 9 months. I think by the time we actually
both had a notebook. We were sharing
some sketches, just some logos.
The first logos were horrendous.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, pretty bad.
Maybe one of these days we can get that graphic up for everybody. So
I still have that whole notebook and all the things we talked about. It was funny the assumptions we made.
I know. And so, fast forward 9 months, I believe it was like Christmas break or Thanksgiving break. And
Christmas
break.
Break.
I had moved on to another project, and at that time they had cut my pay. They said, listen, when you come back, things aren't as... The bust had happened. The boom was happening. The bust had happened. And they were starting to cut pay down. I think when they come back, it was a pretty substantial cut in pay that I was going to take. So it kind of irritated me pretty well. And I called Josh. I said, we've kicked it around enough. When I come home, we're going to knock on some doors and we're going to get some business. And you thought it was going to be that 1 out of 10. We do this all the time now. We pitch people. And, you pitch 20 people a week. and you're looking for that 1 out of 20 kind of, you know, they all get up and shake your hand. Yeah, we'll call you when we get something. And, you know, you don't hear anything back from them on the follow-up. Nah. First person we went and talked to looked at us, said, you know, hey, give me a week. That'll get you an opportunity to get your MSA, your paperwork, your certificate of insurance back to me. And that'll give me an opportunity to get materials ready. And you can get started. So all in about an hour-long conversation, we went from, I was in Kentucky.
There was like an element of fake it till you make it in that conversation. I can remember
an element?
it. Okay, so it was a lot of fake it till you make it. I remember her going like, what type of drill the person interviewing, who now works with us, like she's a VP of operations. Yeah. But she was interviewing both me and Caleb to be, you know, a contractor for her. Subcontractor for her. And, you know, she was like, what kind of drill do y'all use? And we had nothing but forums to read from. Like, we were like, we read on the internet, like, we were like, a good one.
Yeah.
You know, like one that you can rely on.
Yeah.
And she was like, what brand? And we're like, Ditch Witch.
Yeah.
I think that's just what came to mind. So at that point, we were committed. We had no idea if we were going to actually buy a Ditch Witch or a Vermeer, but we were just like, pick one now. And so we did. And so we ended up, and she's like, what size? And like, we were like, oh, freaking crap. Like, you know, it's like now we have to answer another question.
Good size drill.
The best size. What would you recommend?
Yeah.
And so I think we said we had a JT9.
Yeah.
And she was like, that's a good size drill. That's a good size drill for what you're going to be doing.
Long story short, I mean, you know, we took that, we walked out. Josh looks at me and says, we've got to go get equipment because we didn't have equipment, to your point. And
we didn't own anything.
I looked at him and said, I've got to go get my camper out of Kentucky, which is where I was at, the job I was at the time. Said, I got to go get my camper and put in my 2-week notice. I was still on the job site. And so, you know, I tell people, that's when the whirlwind started, and I would tell you that it's ended at some point, but it just feels like.
But you had to go, so you had like some deals to be made on the job site. You had to like, we knew we needed work trucks. I had to trade in my Platinum Ford.
I sold my. I was
Laramie.
driving a Ram 2500 that I'd had for 2 or 3 years
to another guy on the job site.
Sold it cash money to a guy on the job site. I talked to a dealership nearby in Kentucky who delivered me a single cab 1-ton flatbed with roll-up windows. Went back from I don't know what it was called back then, a Laramie. It was top of the line 2500, auto start stop, the whole 9 yards, heated and cooled seats, to a roll-up window 1-ton. Yeah, it's tough. And then talking to welders on the job site, which had to go and weld on my fifth wheel and change it over from a fifth wheel to a gooseneck so I could hook up to it in my new truck. The guy drops me off in the RV park. I walk up in my kitchen of my fifth wheel. I sign the papers for the new truck, and they leave it. The dealer we all meet there, and he drives off with my old truck. The dealer meets me with my new truck. Hook up, bring it home.
So I think it's worth saying the story that, you know, we couldn't afford, like, you know, and I think it's pertinent to the story simply because there's going to be people listening, hopefully, that are watching that want to start their own business, and they need to understand that it's a leap. It's literally a leap of faith.
Yeah.
We made that leap of faith, and there's been several leaps of faith since then, I would say. And there's these like huge gaps. I think when we were reading Scaling Up, you know, they call them death zones. If you read Scaling Up by Vern Harnish, you see that there's these areas where you get into how many employees and how much money coming in and what's your operation like, and we call those death zones. That's just leaps of faith at each time. But one of the leaps of faith is we had to go to a bank and ask them, will you give us a loan based on an idea? Yeah. And maybe some small amount of collateral.
It's a 2-page business plan. We had figured it out. They had told us how much they pay. I kind of put that through. Here's how much production rate we think we can get on a daily basis.
Lots of assumptions.
And was really proud of it. But, you know, we did that piece. We went out. I think the next 3 weeks we drove all over Creation picking up equipment. We did, and that's Virginia. We went up to Iowa.
When we went to Iowa, I think that's maybe not a long story, but it's kind of funny because when we got there, first of all, it was snow on the ground, right? Yeah. And it was iced. Yeah. And the guy was like, so you guys ever done this before? We're like, nope. And he was like, have you got locating equipment? And we're like, oh, no, we need that.
I thought that came with the drill.
We thought it
Wasn't
came
that
with
part of the drill?
Yeah, it was. But he was like, you know, what kind do you need?
Yeah.
And he had some used stuff, and we took that. Then right before we drove out, which we had the flatbed, and we had the trailer that the drill came on. It was a single cab flatbed, so all of our luggage was in it.
Yeah.
And so he said, do you have a real trailer? And not only did we not think about it, but we didn't.
That question may have went like, do you have one of these?
Yeah.
And we both stared at it.
Yeah.
What's that? Well, this is a reel trailer. It hauls around reels. Okay,
you're gonna need
reel. It pulls reels around. What is that? I mean, it was just yeah. It was a learning curve.
So
sure.
we strapped it to the back of the flatbed.
It winds up.
It was like 2 inches hanging off on either side. Yeah. We had like 12 straps on it. We had to run to Walmart, grab straps, and it was the most nerve-wracking drive home all the way back, because we didn't know what was heavy and why it weighed so much. All this stuff we didn't know. We just didn't know what we didn't know. Yeah. So we got home. That was on a Friday. We're still telling the story, the origin story. But, right. I mean, honestly, there's lots of facets, and I hope that we kind of go back and talk about them in future episodes. But one of the things...
Point being, there's a humble beginning there. There's an opportunity, especially with the stuff we've got going on right now in bead and this money flowing in. Yeah. And just, this is really a perspective from two guys that went out where Josh was about to go with this. We get the equipment. We wind up in our...
Nana's
back pasture, and we're learning how to drill. The first 2 or 3 times we drilled out, and I located, and he got on the drill and he drilled. We took our excavator we had borrowed as well.
We bought it.
Not borrowed. We purchased, but we were learning how to use it.
That old girl is still in my driveway. I'm gonna keep her forever.
It's like a relic.
I want it. I want it forever.
We dug a hole probably the size of this room and never found the bit.
No,
and we did that 2 or 3 times. And honestly, we never found it before going on the job site.
Didn't find it on the job site either.
We got on the job site and didn't find it until somebody walks out, one of the employees of the company working for, and says, "Hey, y'all having trouble finding the bit?" And we're like, "Yeah, man, don't know, kind of says it's right here." And he's like, "Well, have you calibrated your locating tool?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, this thing must be out of calibration."
That was a total fake. Like, you didn't know.
Well, we had as evidenced by me walking back to the truck, and I look at Josh and said, "We have to calibrate this thing."
Well, we had watched a YouTube video. Like we had YouTube the day before to practice, but it never showed the calibration. And so we had to YouTube again how to calibrate it at the hood of the truck.
It turns out it was written on the side of the piece of equipment itself, but we didn't bother. Nobody reads instructions. We all know that.
Yeah, you had to dig that crap out of the trash.
Yeah, so we calibrated. Turns out we found the bit for the first time in our careers, our young careers. Completed that job about 10:30 at night.
Hit a water line
while we were at it. First time we ever tried to.
I all but cried with the waterman. I thought like once you hit a waterman.
Josh looked at me and told me we were going under. And this was our first day. He was like, "We're going under. We're going under."
If anybody is listening that has started a company and they just don't know what to expect, everybody seems scary. So when the water guy shows up and there's water coming out,
this must be the mayor.
I'm like,
look at him.
Yeah, he showed up. I thought he was so official that he was going to hand me a fine while we're on the job site. He looked at me, but he could tell I'm nervous as crap. And he goes, "Y'all are really in a bind." And like he kept that going for like 10 minutes, and then he kind of walked over there. He goes, "We're gonna fix this, buddy. No worries." And so, but he ended up being a friend. We know him well now because we worked in this area for so long that we know all the water people. But I can still remember him coming up and pulling his plans out and being like, "Y'all should have known this was here." Yeah. And he was full of crap.
By the way, you shut down the dentist office.
Every dentist.
There's people with their mouths open that can't get their teeth cleaned.
Yeah, you would think they keep a reservoir or something like a dentist. That should be something a dentist office should have. Is like.
Let's push for that. We'll lobby for redundant water supplies for dentist offices.
If you've ever been stuck in a chair during a root canal, I think this would be something that could take traction.
Right. Sure. Okay.
I'll talk to our lobbyist. See what we can get done.
I'm sure the people will appreciate that.
I know a few legislators will talk.
Yeah. Well, again, from the perspective of two guys that started something out of nothing, a leap of faith, we want to come, with those type of perspectives with this podcast and apply that. That's the origin of how things happen, but there's so much more to this story. Just a second, evolution.
Tell where we are now. Like, how many employees do we have now? How many?
So it was Josh. That job we started was Josh and I and one other person on the side of the road.
A friend.
Yeah,
a friend that's like helping.
We conned into coming and helping.
Con is the right word.
A young man out of high school. As well, that
he didn't last
didn't
a few
know
days.
That just didn't know.
He was like, "Nah, screw this, I'm out." He was so dirty the first day, but we were too. Remember that?
Well, that's the thing is we went from, there were times even after year 3 where we were still coming in every evening and taking a water hose and taking our pants off at the back door, hosing the pants out, the mud off the pants before they came in the house to go in the washing machine. Right?
Oh, yeah. I don't know if you know this, but Maytag actually makes like a sub-level, not like a Speed Queen commercial washer, but classified as a commercial wash machine, we had to literally, quote unquote, invest in a commercial washing machine because my wife's like, you've tore up one already. If we have to buy another one.
Oh, yeah, I can't imagine.
Remember, we didn't take a paycheck.
Drum, the dirt in the bottom of that drum, I couldn't imagine.
We didn't take a paycheck for a year.
Yeah, I lived off some savings.
Yeah.
We lived off some savings.
So, like, my wife is a nurse, and she was pregnant, and she was in nurse practitioning school. Mm-hmm. And so, she was working to support me and us, I guess, in a sense. So I didn't take a paycheck for nearly a year, and then, or actually over a year. And, it was kind of funny because we were cutting checks out of the side of our truck every day. Remember, as we started getting new people?
On Thursdays, I think, was payroll, or I had to submit it on Thursday. So I literally had a laptop stand in my truck, and I would be working with the guys out there. And then I set an alarm, and it would pop up. It's like, hey, it's got your hour till payroll's due. And I would hop out of the hole, run in my truck, crank it up, sit in it, do payroll.
Yeah, and
when we got a payroll.
That was when we had a payroll. I mean, before that, we had to go online, and they have. I don't know if you guys know this, but there is programs online that if you tell your state and province or city, it will tell you what your payroll taxes should be based on certain things that we got information from our employees at the time, and we would literally just do that calculation based on that calculator online, and then write that amount into the check. Now, did we save the rest? No, we'll get to that later.
Pro tip. Don't cut paper checks and try to calculate your withholdings yourself.
Yeah.
Spend $30 a month on QuickBooks or something of the like.
Yeah.
Because you can't do it.
Yeah, there's some lessons. We'll come back to this. Like, we're going to talk about, I would love to have like a getting started, not necessarily like a playbook, but just like, don't do what we did.
Look, that's what I was kind of alluding to a while ago. It's like
hard lessons.
With BEAD coming, with all these things coming, and I'm not afraid to say it. I'm in this space, and it doesn't matter. Like, there is ample opportunity for great people that want to, entrepreneurs that want to get into the space. Like, we'll be your pathway. We are looking for subcontractors right now to fulfill our obligations to our customers. So, if you're looking for a opportunity, we're going to cover some of that stuff in here.
Yeah.
And not only, and this is just an extension of what our company does already. EPC already does this with our contractors, our subs that come on. We try to, kind of work with you along the way.
Nurture those relationships.
And let you, kind of show you the ropes and what's important things that we would have liked to have known.
Yeah.
Like get QuickBooks or something of the sort. And so that's
books we've read.
Yeah.
We've already covered scaling up. I remember when I have a cousin who's very successful, and she kind of mentors me in a way. And I'm sure one episode we'll probably get into her and maybe even have her on the show. I'd love to.
Yeah.
But she had me read Scaling Up, I think within the first 8 months that we were in business.
Yeah.
And I think the worst part about it was I felt like such a failure reading that book. And I want to make sure that people that are listening and wanting to it's like, don't worry, you will get there. You're talking about things that affect people that have 50 and 60 employees, but you're also talking about things that affect how to set up your culture from the beginning, how to set up processes from the beginning. And that's something we didn't do. Our culture was basically devised from us, I would say. Like, it's like our
founder-led culture.
And our personalities are shown still to this day in the culture, I would say. But with that being said, there are ways to disseminate those things probably better than what we've done.
Yeah,
in the beginning.
You read let's take that book for example. You read that book and you feel that way, but it's also very hard. It's a lot. It would take a ton of discipline. You can't grasp the gravity of how important those things are as well, because you're like, all right, it's me and 5 people, right? But then as you grow,
what was that movie? It's like, I'm sitting here reading "Don't Kill Myself" books,
Wedding Crashers.
You come in talking about this.
Kindly leave.
Kindly leave.
So you've got it's just you can't grasp the gravity of those things, but it doesn't change the fact that they are very important. And like you said, we'll touch on those things too. Like, this little culture piece right here. If you're hiring and firing by those things, you're going to save yourself a lot of heartache. And we can tell you 25, 30, 40 stories of that over and over again before we finally realized culture's number one and core values. Like, you have to have cultural alignment. They've got to be bought into your worthy cause, and they've got to have the same core values as you, or it doesn't matter how high of a performer they are, it's not going to work.
I think that it's worth kind of recapping the fact that this podcast is going to be informational, hopefully, informational, kind of a how do we get here, where are we going? Because our journey's not over.
Right.
We're still learning. We're still big time learning.
No, I got it all
we're going to be
figured out.
someone. Well,
Speak for yourself.
Well, I'm glad we have you as a leader. I'm just here to be comic relief. But and that goes for ISPs, entrepreneurs in the construction business.
Yeah.
People trying to set up their own CLECs. What does it look like for everybody? Like let's start looking at what the problems are as the subject matter experts come in that can tell us what the journey looked like for them, what it could look like for new people coming into the businesses. Yeah. What's the future hold? Let's hear that from some people.
Yeah, and inevitably that's going to bring in some world events, right? And some things that's going on outside of the scope of fiber. And that's why I say, like, it's talk fiber to me, baby, today. But, there's things that are going to come along that I know our people are going to want to hear about, are going to want to explore. And just to your point, it's also the business side of how to take advantage of the market we're in or how to navigate the market we're in. So I think,
dealing with controversy, people, not just that, when we first got started, it's worth saying that there were some naysayers. Our dad loved us being in business, but he's like, I'm worried for y'all. Right, and he's been supportive always. I don't want to say that he hasn't been. Our CPA.
I asked him what was rule number. What advice would you give us?
Don't work with family.
Don't go in business with your family.
Yeah,
as we are filing our articles with him.
Yeah, it's like, man, we've already spent the money, brother.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
We're down this rabbit hole now.
We spent $400 on these articles. We can't turn back now.
Yeah, $400 was a lick.
Yeah,
I remember being like, geez, is there an easier way to start a business? $400.
$400, man, that's a lot of red tape. Yeah,
and then and just figuring it out, not just that, but like as you get started, there were several roadblocks as far as like when we struck fiber and when we struck the water line and other things where we contemplated like how deep are we in it, and there's some turn back areas, like some turnaround spots, and you either have to push through or you have to decide where you're going to go from there, and I think that there's probably people dealing with that right now.
Right.
All right. So, talk through all that.
So that's kind of episode 1. I think we've taken about 25, 30 minutes. It looks like we've given here's the format, here's what we're going to cover, here's a little bit about us, lending at least a small amount of credibility or at least some perspective of where we come from. Look for these videos, these podcasts to be released. There's going to be opportunities to click and subscribe. We'd love for y'all to do that. And we'll see you next time from Talk Fiber to Me, baby.